You made it. I don't say that lightly because I know what it took to stay in this. Life doesn't stop while you're trying to grow. The bills kept coming, the pressure kept coming, the days where none of this felt relevant, where survival mode took over and personal development felt like a luxury. Those days came too. And you're still here. This is the quarter one finale. And before we talk about what's next, I want to take a minute, just a minute, to acknowledge what this quarter actually was. This is Sauna. I E. I'm XO. Today, we close one chapter and open another. Quarter one wasn't about information. If it was just information, you could have Googled it. You know that, right? What this quarter was really about, underneath all the topics, all the research, all the conversations, was one thing: confronting yourself. Honestly, without the performance, without the armor up. We asked, who are you when nobody's watching? We looked at the stories you inherited about what success is supposed to look like and what people's timeline of you that you've been living on. We went into the pressure to provide and what it does to a man's sense of worth when he ties it to his identity. We talked about self sabotage, not as weakness, but as the old self trying to protect you from something new. And we discussed the isolation when leveling up and why real brotherhood is not a soft concept, but a documented survival strategy. In last episode, last week, if you haven't heard it, we talked about grief. Grief that comes with evolving, changing, becoming. That strange loss of who you were, even when who you were was holding you back. And the research done by Columbia University found that our brains literally divide time into chapters, distinct mental segments separated by shifts in context, environment, and intention. What that means is your brain is actually wired to start fresh. The reset is not just a motivational concept, it is a neurological one. When you mark a transition with intention, your brain registers it differently. It encodes it as a new chapter. New chapters carry new possibilities. So today, we're doing that deliberately. We're marking the transition. We're closing quarter one with intention so that quarter two doesn't just happen to you. You step into it with authority. But we got to get direct. Here's what I want you to do. Don't skip the reflection. Don't rush into quarter two with that energy without actually sitting in with what this quarter actually produced. Because a reset without reckoning is just avoidance with better branding. So before we talk about what's next, I want you to ask yourself three questions. You might have to get your pen and pad out for this one and write the questions down and maybe sit on them for the next week or so and see what your answers reveal. And I really mean ask yourself these questions, not just write them down and just scroll past them, and not let them be rhetorical. Sit with them. The first question is, what did I actually learn about myself this quarter? Not what I accomplished, not what you consumed. What did you learn about yourself, about the patterns, the fears, the defaults that you didn't fully see before? And me personally, I wrote mine down. Of course, I'm participating with y'all. I wrote four. One was I'm still avoiding confrontation and productive communication. The next one is a waste a lot of time on distractions. Positive one was my reading has been consistent. And the last one is fear has been in control. You can't operate like that. The second question would be, what did I avoid? We all have this thing we have circled around, but we didn't land on. The conversation we didn't have, the habit we kept almost starting, or maybe that business, The decision we kept deferring. Name it. You can't reset what you haven't reckoned with. Number three was what am I carrying into quarter two that doesn't belong there? An old belief, a relationship that's draining you, a version of yourself you've been performing. Whatever it is, name it now before you carry it into this next chapter by default. And research on intentional transitions. When what psychologists call psychological closure shows that people who deliberately mark the end of a period before beginning a new one make better decisions, carry less emotional residue, and are significantly more likely to follow through on new intentions. The reset is not about forgetting. It's about choosing what to bring forward and what to leave behind. And that distinction is everything. You don't have to have perfect answers to these three questions. You just have to be honest. Honesty is what separates the men who want to grow from the men who's just moving. And sometimes you got to ask yourself, am I growing or am I moving? Because you may be confusing the two. You may be thinking you're growing, but you're just moving. And you may think you're moving, but you're growing. So understanding what direction you're moving towards. And I'd answer question two. So question two is what do I avoid? Making sales calls, building my other business, as well as tracking my meals, getting more defined on that. And what I named it was AO. I'm acting like AO. AO, I broke it to an acronym, avoiding your obedience. It's like whenever I'm avoiding what I'm supposed to do, it's like or ordained to do. It's I'm avoiding my obedience. And number three is what am I carrying a quarter two that doesn't belong there? That what if question, which we all have. That what if? What if it doesn't work out? What if that happens? Well, yada yada yada. But we just have to understand that does that question serve us in this next chapter of our lives? But I want to be precise about what a reset is because I think the word gets used loosely. A reset is not starting over. You're not wiping out what quarter one built. You're not going back to zero. A reset is starting from everything you now know. It is taking that foundation that is quarter laid and building deliberately on top of it. Think about it in terms of what this quarter actually gave you. You have more clarity about your identity, who you are when the performance comes down. You have a sharper understanding of the patterns that have been keeping you small. You've confronted the provider pressure and started to separate your worth from your output. You have language now for the grief of becoming. And if you did the work from last week, you've taken at least one step toward a real circle. Men who know the actual version of you. This is not nothing. This is the foundation. And quarter two is where you build. Did you know? Neuroplasticity research confirms that intentional mental transitions, moments where you consciously choose to step back, recalibrate, and re engage, can physically reshape neural pathways. The intentional reset is not soft, it is one of the highest performance moves available to you. Elite athletes use timeouts, surgeons use checklists. The most effective people in any field build deliberate pauses into their processes. Not because they're slowing down, but because that pause is what actually allows them to move faster and more accurately into that next phase. So you may have to ask yourself, am I deliberately putting pauses in my journeys? Am I taking that time to recalibrate, analyze, strategize, then re-engage? And that's what this reset is before we step into quarter two. We got a week left into quarter two. So it's like it comes down to how we gonna end off quarter one with that reflection, that reset, and then we attack quarter two. And quarter two starts with intention or starts with inertia. One of those is a choice, and the other one just happens. Guess what? You get to choose. And I think as we end this quarter one, I want to give you like three things to carry into quarter two. Not a list, not a vision board, three internal commitments. The kind of change how you move and not just what you plan. That first one is carry self knowledge. Everything you learned about yourself this quarter, the patterns, the defaults, the places where you tend to shrink, or you overcompensate. That awareness is a weapon. Most men walk into every new chapter making the same damn mistakes because they never took inventory. You've taken inventory, use it when the old patterns show up in quarter two. And trust me, they will show up. You'll recognize them faster, you'll name them faster, and you'll have a choice that you didn't have before. Number two, carry the standard. This quarter, you started holding yourself to something higher, right? A higher standard for how you manage your mind, how you respond to pressure, and how you show up for the people in your circle. Don't let quarter two erode that. Don't let a new season become an excuse to go back to being comfortable. The standard you set in quarter one is the floor for quarter two, and then you build above it. Number three, carry the permission. Permission to be in progress. Permission to not have it all figured out. Permission to be the version of yourself that is still becoming, that is still building in public, making moves in real time, and you're figuring it out as you go. That version is not less credible than the finished products. He is the most credible version because he's actually doing the work. Research on goal commitment and follow through is clear on one thing. The gap between intention and action closes when people make their commitment specific, time bound, and witnessed. Tell somebody what you're stepping into in quarter two, not for accountability, but because speaking it out loud to someone who matters to you makes it real in a way that staying in your head never does. You've been building your circle, use it. Because quarter two, second quarter of the game, is really going to challenge you differently than quarter one did. It's a new season. You're going to have new friction, but you're not the same man who you were 90 days ago, 3 months ago. That man was figuring out the questions, and now you know some of the answers. So what you'll do, you'll build from there. Let me land this plane. I do this show because I believe that the everyday brother, the man who is ambitious but yet imperfect, who is building but also doubting at the same time, who's carrying the real weight and still choosing to grow, deserves a space where the conversation is real, where the research meets the lived experience, where nobody's selling you a shortcut because real growth doesn't have one. Growth is a journey. There's setbacks and there's comebacks, and there's resets. And that's what Sanai is. The fact that you've been here every week, day in, day out, doing this work, that means something. Not just to your own journey, to the men around you who are watching you change and don't know yet, which was just it's crazy, that they have permission to do the same. And your growth is never just yours. And something I always like try to live by, one person's obedience is connected to so many people's destinies. So you being obedient and what you're doing is connected to other people's destiny. So continue being obedient in your journey. So here's your send off into quarter two. Go into the next chapter knowing who you are, going with your standard set, going with at least one real brother who knows what you're building, going with the honest answers to those questions, or at least with the courage to keep asking them. Don't rush it, don't perform it, just build it brick by brick, week by week, the way real things get built. Quarter one is closed. Adios. Quarter two starts now.